life of an open road trucker, while filled with a lot of monotony, also apparently has a few perks. You can see some of the weirdest people doing some of the weirdest shit imaginable. Because where else are you going to see crazy ass shit, such as these 13 insane trucker stories? Number 1. I had an RV crawl up alongside me once in Indiana. I have a habit of looking over when folks get up alongside me to check and see if they're paying attention to the road, or on their phone, or even possibly dozing off. Anyway, I glance over to see how old this couple is in this RV maybe. I was surprised to find the driver was maybe 30 tops. He looks over and smiles, says, "Sure as God's got sandals." The next second later, a young naked woman is bent over the passenger side of the dash and is being acted upon by another young naked woman, what appears to be, guess it, a horse-shaped sized dildo. Having seen this porno before, I click the cruise control back a notch or two and proceed to let the thing go on. Number 2. I'm a truck driver. I had a hooker climb into my truck while I was sleeping. My truck's passenger side door wasn't locked as well as I thought. I had been hit in the parking lot by another truck and it bent the door a little. I tested the lock and it seemed to lock and unlock fine, but that turned out to be wrong. It was around 1 a.m. and in my sleep I sort of vaguely heard my door open, so I already started to wake up. Then someone shook me up by my shoulder. I jumped up and hit her in the face with my laptop. We got in this weird hair-pulling slap fight and physically pushed/kicked her over the passenger seat and out of the door onto the pavement. I stood there, half awake, blinking at her through the windshield when she jumped up, flashed me her boobs, flipped me off, and ran away. I went back to sleep, sort of. Woke up about an hour or so later with someone knocking on my door. It was the police. She called them and told them that she was my girlfriend and I'd beat her up and thrown her out of the truck stop. I believe they were getting ready to handcuff me when a few of the other truck drivers came over to explain that she'd been knocking on trucks all night and was there most weekends, either knocking on doors or trying to climb into unlocked trucks. The cops didn't really say anything else to me. They just handcuffed her and drove away with her in the back. Plot twist. I'm a female, and I look nothing like the stereotypical ideal of the manly female trucker. She looked like a greasy beach ball with dead caterpillars for eyebrows. Number 3. Not me, but my dad. He was a career long-haul driver. The thing he said was the worst that he's ever seen was he was driving along an interstate when a minivan cut off the truck in front of him. It's been a few years since I've heard the actual story, but I think it was like the lost control due to weather or highway hypnosis somewhere out west. Killed the entire family. Blood and body parts scattered across the freeway. My dad had to physically restrain the other driver because after the shock set in, he kept trying to run into traffic to kill himself. Number 4. Pulled over to stay the night in the Arizona Welcome Center on I-40. I hear a light knocking on my door. An old lady wearing nothing but an oversized sweatshirt is standing outside. I roll down my window and ask what's up. In the tiniest, creepiest little voice, she says that there's something in her car making a weird noise and that she needs help with it. I didn't help her. Number 5. My dad is a truck driver. He doesn't typically do the long hauls, just locally around town. He typically hauls gravel trains, running 2 trailers, but he was also following another person who was hauling the same thing, sand. But as he was going along, they were coming up to a curve and there was a guy standing on the side of the road. Sadly, the guy decided he wanted to take his life, so he dived in front of the truck. Not my dad's, but the guy he was following. So, my dad just saw all the splatter from the aftermath. You can imagine being run over by an 18-wheeler. But also, he had to drive the truck to the police station for an investigation. Afterwards, since the guy was pretty shaken up, and about a week later, they found the guy's car left in a parking lot with a suicide note inside of it. Number 6. My dad drove long haul for years. One company he worked for had a yard right in the city. One night, a homeless person tried to steal material from a stack in the yard and pulled the wrong piece. The stack came down and decapitated him. They found his headless body the next morning. Number 7. We were driving on a highway in the mountains headed to Utah in the middle of the night, and I happened to be driving. I got passed on a curve by another semi who eventually got in the right lane. Well, I have no idea if he was texting or falling asleep, but he swerved to the right and almost went off the side of the cliff. Luckily, he swerved about a foot from the ledge, and I'm pretty sure he shit his pants. Number 8. I was in California and it was my second year trucking, so it must have been around 2004. The guy I was driving with was old school and was teaching me the ropes. About 2:30 a.m., he wakes me up and says, "You've gotta see this." There was a big commotion going on out in the lot. The police are starting to show up. Eventually, locks were cut and the doors to the trailers came open, and out flies 500 starving, stinking, scared Asians. It reminds me of cockroaches and cats scattering like you see in the horror shows. What came next may have been the funniest thing I'd ever seen. I doubt the cops ever caught them all because they all ran into the woods, but some of them would come back and open the doors for their friends who had been captured. To watch the police chase these people around in a circle, then to see their face when they were bringing their new catch to the vans, just to see the doors wide open and empty was hilarious. Number 9. I was the passenger for this, but on a long drive I accompanied my mom. We saw a man standing on the concrete divider about 10 p.m. It was fall, so it was dark out and pouring rain. He was dressed as a jester, and it was on a stretch of poorly lit highway. She flinched and asked if I saw it. I said that I did, and we watched as he walked slowly along the divider with his arms out a little to the sides. She pulled over because she was freaking out so bad, and he started doing weird stuff. Cartwheels and handstands and shit. Weirdest thing ever. Number 10. My friend's father was a truck driver once, and while driving behind another big rig, a log came loose and slammed through his windshield. It hurt him pretty badly, and he's got PTSD now from it. He's alive, but it was pretty traumatic for him. Number 11. My dad's a trucker. I go out with him a lot in the truck. One day, we were at a stop eating lunch. The stop was next to some woods. Out of the woods walks a man carrying an axe, which appears to be dripping in something. Not sure what it was. It looked too light to be blood or anything. He stood in front of our truck, glaring, for about a minute, and then walked on. Number 12. Last year, my in-laws, who team drive a truck, had a head-on collision and killed the other driver. It was a 2-lane highway, and the other driver pulled out to pass. Rather than move back into his lane when he saw there wasn't enough time, he doubled up and sped. My in-laws veered onto the shoulder to avoid him. He moved to the shoulder too. My in-laws put their truck in the ditch, and so did the other driver. They hit head-on in the ditch hard enough to tear the engine out of the semi-truck. It was almost like the other guy was trying to kill himself. Thankfully, the RCMP explained to them that when drivers are faced with something like this, they tend to stare at the hazard and instinctively stare towards what they are looking at. Bonus fact, they were hauling explosives. That thankfully did not explode. Number 13. One time, in the early morning, when it was still dark out, we had barely gotten far, about 30 miles from where we left. Grandpa got onto the interstate, and 5 minutes later, he started to brake and cuss. Then we hit something. A lot of noise and the feeling of running over something happened. He hit a cow. A freaking cow. A whole bunch of cattle had gotten out and were all over the interstate. He radioed some other truckers and we got the police there. Blood and guts everywhere. I was traumatized. I still don't eat beef to this day. Hey guys, thank you for checking out my videos. Definitely like, share, and subscribe, and stay tuned for more content coming soon.